first started posting, were you just posting about the deals that you were doing, not asking for money, not asking, hey, do you have money to invest? Or were you the post you would make, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. If you're interested in learning more, reach out to me. Kind of what was your initial post was like, and what are you doing different now? Or is it like, are you doing the same thing?
Yeah, I go back and forth with that all the time, to being more direct and having kind of like, hey, are you looking to invest? Here is an option, right? To where just telling what I'm doing. So I try to do a mix of both. And yeah, it depends who you ask. And it honestly depends on your audience. Like if you want to be very direct and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, or just showing what you're doing. But I think either way works, and it really depends on your audience. So I guess my answer would be do a mix of both. Like I try to be showing what I'm doing, but I also try to put out some posts and some videos where like, hey, here's a deal. And this is actually what I'm trying to do more now is, hey, here's an example deal where we partnered with a private money lender and this is the return they got, right? So that's a good one. That's a really good way once you've started to do this and you've repeated it, is showing case studies and examples. But when you're first starting out, yeah, just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. And I was very forward though, even in the beginning. I'm like, hey, I would love to have a conversation with somebody if they're interested in partnering in a deal.
Yeah, that's how, even when I look back, when I started buying rental properties, I kind of got to the same stage. I was on a W-2 job and ran out of cash, but I would go to local REIAs and then I would just talk to people about what I was doing without directly asking them for money. And when people would come and ask me, hey, what are you doing? Like you could just tell who was more curious. And were they curious from the point of view of learning more, or did they have some money to invest? And I'm curious to find out, like for me, what has helped. And even now, I actually got a message from one of my friends who lends money to me. He's like, hey, I have $200,000 available. Do you need something? Like this is without me even asking. But what started happening was when I started, like I would borrow money and I would make sure I was paid them back on time. Then, they would start out with 50,000 and then go up to 100, then 200. Is that kind of what you notice? Like people would start out with a smaller amount just to build that trust? Like how was that journey for you?
100%. Sharad, I'm glad you brought that up, because literally we just went through this as we started to do our first, I was raising a fund, like an equity fund to take down real estate. And as I was trying to go and get commitments from like $100,000 for these people to go put it in for 5 years, maybe on a big multifamily property. Like that is, even with my track record of doing this for I've been working with private money lenders for probably 7 years now. And even with that track record, that was still a challenge to get people to come in and put $100K up for 5 years. And even though the return looked really solid and it's a really pretty low risk investment, right? But what I found is way easier, and literally just in the last 6 months, I found this out, is, hey, go and just put people into if you're doing it works the best if you're doing a fix and flip, or even maybe a wholesale where you need some transactional funding, is get them into a short-term deal that's like maybe 3 to 6 months or less than a year, and put their money to work and then pay them back interest, and basically have them put their money in and then give them back their money plus interest. And then, as Sharad just said, then they're itching for the next deal and they're ready to go, right?
When you started, did you have any minimum that you were looking for people to invest? And then do you have any minimum now?
Another great question. Minimum, initially, we took like 10,000 from somebody that I knew. It was a good friend of mine. Now at this point, that would probably not be worth all the headaches and paperwork. But at the same time, if this person who has 10,000 is somebody who might have 100,000 later and down the road, that's, I think, still a good investment. Because again, anytime, for example, I just had somebody reach out with 25,000 the other day, and I was kind of thinking, oh man, that's not maybe worth it. But if this is somebody who can have a longer relationship, I would 100% do it. So now I typically look, but even still now, I mean, there's still a lot more people I'm finding about 50 to 100,000 is kind of a good comfort level.
Got it. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Like my friend who just messaged me, like he had 50,000 to invest a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, you know what? I would love that, but like it's hard for me to allocate that money towards a specific project, so that I can like buy a house with this and say, hey, this money belongs to this project. I'm like, minimum we want is like 100,000. So for us, our accounting purposes, we can take the entire amount and allocate it to one project. And then when we sell, the money goes back. So It's interesting. But yeah, you're right. Like when I first started out, I would take like 10, 15, 20,000 just to kind of build that relationship and do short term and then just kind of build on that trust.